Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of Play-by-Play, the daily wrestling podcast with me, Atif Nawaz, and with me today, it's not Armand. He's not here today. He's still traveling to Europe, but I've got a very special returning guest with me. I've got Mr. Danger Rich himself, Mr. Rich Latter II. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, man. Just actually woke up and got the message from you, and I was here.
Well, I appreciate that. You came in on late notice, so I really, really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on the topics we're going to discuss today. But before that, I just want to remind everybody to check out our wonderful friends at eWrestlingNews.com. eWrestling News is a fantastic website which has excellent articles. It kind of aggregates news from around the world. Anybody can get their news and their views across, so it's a great website. Check them out. Also, our friends at TopRopePress.com, they've got a great website over there as well. Loads of fresh wrestling news, fresh articles, great columnists. Everything is brilliant. So check those guys out as well. And we're going to tell you all about my special guest today and some of his contributions on the internet. We're going to be talking today, Rich and myself are going to be talking about this week's episode of Monday Night Raw, which was quite interesting, and it had a very important knock-on effect to the February pay-per-view, which is Fastlane. We've got an official new main event for that now, and also we're going to be talking about the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, which he did for the WWE Network, this time interviewing Triple H, and there were loads of interesting things to come out of that podcast as well. So let's get right into it. Let's get into the meat of it, Rich. Tell me right away, how do you feel about Daniel Bryan's versus Roman Reigns at Fastlane?
Oh, it's gonna be epic. It's gonna be everything that WWE and the fans want. Even if Bryan doesn't win, they can give the fans some type of closure from the situation and use Bryan to help Roman Reigns, in ring to open up a lot of fans' eyes to him, and it traffics a little hope for the Daniel Bryan fans out there, which there are a ton of, and WWE also gets to get Roman Reigns ready if that's the route they're going and they're not changing, or it gives them the easy way to write Daniel Bryan in. And sorry about your damn luck, Roman Reigns, but however they want to do it, it looks like it's going to work out to everyone's advantage.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. The whole Roman Reigns dynamic is really interesting. Now, I exchanged some notes with Rahman earlier today. He got really excited when I said this to him. And okay, tell me if you agree with me. Maybe it was just me. But I felt like Roman Reigns actually got a very strong reaction from the crowd at Monday Night Raw. A very positive reaction. Am I right in understanding that?
He did. It was the high-pitched cheer. I had tweeted. I was like, "That's nothing to ignore. It happened." A lot of people on the internet will just write, "Oh, it looks like that crowd didn't pop." Just for their own agenda. I was like, "No, it happened."
It did happen. It did happen. As you say, it was high-pitched. There were loads of ladies in the crowd, obviously, and they were very fond of Roman Reigns. And they made
women love Roman Reigns. Like I was at Battleground, the pay-per-view last year, and I was actually in the area where he walks out, like towards the top. Like women were pushing each other out of the way, like to try to get closer to Reigns. It was quite a sight to see.
I can imagine. He's a handsome guy. Let's not take that away from him. He's a good-looking dude, and the ladies love him. We know that, and he got the high-pitched noises out of the way early. It was almost unfortunate for WWE because I feel like if they didn't go in this direction this week, if they were patient, they held on for one more week, that kind of reaction may have given them the courage to pull the trigger all the way with Roman Reigns. I remember thinking that when I was watching it with a big smile on my face because obviously I'm a big Daniel Bryan fan. I like to see him in the vicinity of the world title picture, if not in there. So yeah, that was interesting, and it was weird how WWE almost pitted the fans against each other in terms of you're either with Roman or you're either with Daniel Bryan. There was an interesting backstage segment where Daniel Bryan tried to chat with Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns almost turned heel. He turned around to Daniel Bryan and he said, "Get the hell out of my dressing room. Get the hell out of my dressing room," said to the top babyface in the company. That would be a heel most days of the week?
Yeah, and in most cases it would, but I think they're playing up the spirit of competition, and they don't do that often. Usually it's like, okay, this is what where we're pointing people. This is what's going on. There's a story, but nah, it's like they're both good guys. And there's some tension there because they're going to be number one. And that's old school if you think about it.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's absolutely old school. I'm with you. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it was just interesting because I feel like if that crowd wasn't so firmly behind Roman Reigns, and obviously they like Bryan too, they erupted for the yes chance. They were firmly behind him when he was in the match against Seth Rollins. But had that been any other crowd in America, I feel like, I don't know. I think that was the Roman Reigns hotspot where they were on Monday. But if they were in, let's say Chicago, or even where they had the Royal Rumble, if they were in front of that crowd, that would be an instant heel turn for Roman Reigns.
The good thing is we all saw it at the same time, so whenever Roman Reigns comes to your town, you can react accordingly. So
I have a feeling Roman Reigns is not going to get a positive reaction in London. I can promise you that.
Yeah, you guys are rough out there.
Yeah, we're really mean. We're a mean crowd in the UK, and we're very smarky. We're in. H said. So we'll talk about Triple H's comments a little bit later. But in general, I mean, do you think it was the right move from WWE to convolute a little bit that world title picture? Because they had built up a clear main event of Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Do you think this is WWE second-guessing themselves, or do you think they're trying to put more positive, just trying to give Roman Reigns more obstacles to overcome to give him more legitimacy with the hardcore fans that are rejecting him right now?
A little bit of both. I think it's a flashback to the days where they'd be like, okay, in the 90s, such and such would win the Royal Rumble, and then they would face whoever the champion is. Or, in this case, they're doing it in reverse. We know who the champion is, but they want to make it less predictable. Mm-hmm. Like when Austin won the Royal Rumble in 1997, and Shawn Michaels loses a smile and he throws the title picture into a tailspin. And it was like, okay, by the time, such and such, by the time WrestleMania comes, either Undertaker will have the title or Sid will have the title, Undertaker or Brett will have the title, and Sid or Brett will have the title, and whoever's match it is will be for the title. So I think it's a flashback to that. But Roman Reigns, it's hard to say, but him having a match with Daniel Bryan, like I said before, is strictly to give him another match in a main event scenario if they're going to pull the trigger on him, or it's part two of the Yes Movement.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I guess they're not going to know if Roman. I would love for it to be the part two of the Yes Movement. I think a lot of people would, but they're just not going to know whether he's right for that main event spot. Sure, they can put him in a main event against Daniel Bryan, but they're doing two things here. They're kind of doing the opposite of what they did at the Royal Rumble. The idea of the Royal Rumble was to keep him separate from Bryan so that fan resentment doesn't sneak over. It did anyway. So the way it's been booked makes me think it's got either Roman Reigns heel or Daniel Bryan does come through. Or they're just going through this Bret Hart, Lex Luger style thing from '94. Right. Where they just want to see who's more popular and make a call on the day.
Well, that'll be an easy decision. Like, there's no contest on who's more popular. But
as we heard though on Monday, Reigns is making ground.
Yeah, he is. But until he can he's gonna get booed. Like there are gonna be places he gets booed. And if it was my company, which it is not. I probably would go with the guy who closed out WrestleMania last year, who is the hottest guy that they've had in 10 years, and just ride it out because Roman Reigns is clearly the future. Do you want to go to that future now? You risk, alienating a lot of fans.
Yeah, I guess what they've done is they've bought themselves some time, and I guess it was a really shrewd move from the WWE because it incites more people to buy the WWE network. This February free month thing, well, that's the thing. It's only free for new subscribers, right? So I learned this recently, and it's not like you just get a free month. You get the free month if you sign up. So it's like you're gonna pay for 1 month or the other anyway. So if you get February free, you get March you've got to pay for March. And hence,
you pay for WrestleMania.
You get WrestleMania, and then they can do the stockholders or shareholders report, or their phone call, the conference call that they do, where they give the report and they can report a really, really high number for WrestleMania. So, but excellent marketing strategy there. I'm not having a go or anything. I just think it's not as happy, hunky dory, very nice. Let's give you a free month, as nice as they're putting out there. So, yeah, that was interesting. They've got that three-man dynamic now. Seth Rollins had to eat a loss from Daniel Bryan. It wasn't a clean loss either, and they were teasing this Invisible Man type guy in the front row, who at the time a lot of people who were tweeting thought Randy Orton was there.
Oh yeah, I surely thought it was Randy Orton.
Yeah, I was I'm with you. I mean, somebody tweeted a picture, and I was like, yeah, that's got to be Randy Orton. Clearly, he's going to make a run in, and maybe that's going to make the difference. And Daniel Bryan's going to go over with that kind of interference. But then in the end, I guess Rollins had the out of Reigns. But who's Rollins going to be programmed with now?
I think Rollins, he'll end up. That's a good question. He could take on Ziggler at the next pay-per-view. He could take on pretty much anyone that, WWE is really good at this. They'll create something out of nowhere, and it might happen on SmackDown, which would suck. But
Ziggler took a loss from Bray Wyatt, who we know they're building up for The Undertaker, and his promo indicates that it's almost definitely going to be The Undertaker for Bray Wyatt. But yeah, Ziggler has been knocked down. One more thing on Raw because I want to leave enough time to talk about Triple H.
right.
Dean Ambrose definitively threw himself in the Intercontinental Championship. Definitively, and he gave I thought what was an excellent promo. There was great storytelling there about what the championship means. He talked about being at WWE headquarters, some of the classic champions, so instantly taking you away from the Ezekiel Jacksons of the world, and no disrespect to Ezekiel Jackson. Okay, maybe a little bit of disrespect to Ezekiel Jackson. So he's making you think of the Mr. Perfects, the Bret Harts, the Chris Jerichos, the classic champions, and he's trying. I thought that was excellent storytelling. Do you think that's a good role, or as good a role as there could be on the card for him at the moment?
Yes, I think the top is he's just the odd man out, and I thought either he would get into. I had said it on One Nation Radio. I was like, Cesaro would be an option for him, but Barrett also. That's about as good of an option of the guys who are left on the heel side, and. I hate to say this, but they can work on bringing back the prestige of the Intercontinental title. But
why do you hate to say that? That's a very valid point.
Because people say it so often,
yeah.
And we've been wanting a prestige for the Intercontinental title to come back since Randy Orton. As Randy Orton might be the last great Intercontinental champion that we had.
Didn't Jericho go after him?
Yeah, that's true. But it just felt like a prop. Like it wasn't for guys on the rise, pretty much. Like Orton was on the rise. Jericho was who he was going to be by that point.
I'm with you. So that's good. I mean, I'm glad to see Dean Ambrose in a feud that he can get something interesting out of Wade Barrett. I'm looking forward to
the brawl.
Yeah, absolutely. They can brawl, and we know the WWE likes a good brawl. And crucially, it means he's not going to be buried, hopefully, trying to build the top card. I really hope they can separate the mid card, the upper mid card, and the main event kind of players, because it's so tempting for them usually to use the IC champion or whoever's at the head of the mid card to build or to almost be like modern day enhancement talent for the big boys. But I like the fact that I think that distinguishing what the middle guys are doing, like Dean Ambrose, from what the big boys like, well, let's face it, at the moment, Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns, what these guys are doing. So there's a distinct difference.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. I just summed it up so well. You can't do anything but agree with me, Rich. That's it. That's how I like it.
That's it.
I run a tight ship. That's good. Okay, well, I guess you're going to have plenty of opinions about our next topic today, which was Triple H's podcast interview, which is, I find it weird to call it a podcast, really, because it's broadcast live on TV, so that's not really a podcast. But anyway, the Stone Cold podcast, Steve Austin, looking a little bit chunky, I have to say, on WWE Network, interviewed Triple H.
That beer.
Yeah, he's obviously been enjoying himself since he retired. I absolutely love Steve Austin, so hold the hate mail, guys. But yeah, you could do with hitting the gym a few times a week, I reckon. Anyway, so he was there. He interviewed Triple H. Loads of expectation because people wanted to moan about the Royal Rumble, but of course the way Raw was booked, it almost kind of stopped Steve Austin in his tracks because I think he was questioned WWE's booking, and he was ready to start saying like what gives with Daniel Bryan. But as it happened, they had already rectified a lot of those things on the show. I think that's fair to say. How did you feel about what were your thoughts instantly kind of going into the podcast?
Before it ever got started, I knew Daniel Bryan would win because they weren't going to walk in there and have Triple H answering questions about. I mean, he ended up answering questions about the booking immediately anyway, but he wasn't about to answer questions about the aftermath booking of Raw like that. And it was, it was a good show.
It was a good show, and I was quite surprised how comfortable Triple H was in the whole scenario, because Vince McMahon often, even though this is Stone Cold Steve Austin, this is a guy he shared so much television with over the years. He's been on the screen with him, he's taken hits in the face with a bedpan from him, he's done all sorts, right? But he was so awkward.
He was just having stunner flashbacks or something, I don't know.
Well, this is the thing, he just looked so, he was so awkward, he gave like some really weird answers as well to some of the questions, like the Cesaro Swiss thing. There were loads of weird responses that you don't really expect from Vince. But Triple H looked like he was in his comfort zone. He came in, he unbuttoned his top shirt, so he was looking more casual, and he looked like he had a proper rapport with Steve Austin as well. He didn't look like the kind of guy Steve Austin wanted to deliberately antagonize.
Right. When like a lot of the Triple H stuff, it was hard to follow. For the average viewer, I feel like Vince McMahon kind of talked in a way where you could show this to a kid and he would understand what was going on. But they were talking about the booking in the kayfabe era and the non-kayfabe era, and it seemed like the topic never changed. They stayed on the same topic for the first half hour, and it was just okay, where's this going? But it was fascinating just to hear that Triple H is a lot more in tune with what's going on with, as he said, that segment, the audience. And he hates to even say that because, everyone's walking around with the internet in their pocket now. So, there is no IWC.
I like that. Actually, his comment that really struck a chord with me was something like, I know who I'm playing to. So he was talking about booking NXT. And
right.
Well, why NXT? What's so special about NXT? Why is it so important to you? Steve Austin said to him, and he was like, well, I know who I'm aiming for. I know I can put that kind of wrestling show out there. I know the people who support the network are generally young adult males. So he knows, right. Absolutely right. He's in tune. Vince McMahon was giving the kind of interview, or he tried to give the kind of interview that you would expect on a broader WWE television show, like the audience that watches a Raw or a SmackDown. Whereas Triple H was acutely aware that the people watching this are going to be smarks. They're going to be, the IWC. They're going to be people who know the business inside out, or at least think they know the business inside out. So I think he was really smart in identifying that right off the bat.
And I've got to believe they have, within WWE, they can all see what we're watching, and they ask you for your demographic information when you sign up for the network, and it's optional. I went ahead and submitted my information. What do I have to hide? But I'm sure they see who exactly watches what, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys watching, a lot of the Attitude Stable, era moments and stuff like that, but at the same time, I'm sure NXT has great ratings within, our demographic, me and you. But, I'm WWE, I think they're a lot more ahead of the curve than we give them credit for.
Yeah, they absolutely are. I think one thing that they're fantastic at, and nobody can take this away from the WWE, is their marketing, their kind of relationship with their audience. They know how to maintain that. They know how to ask people the right questions. As you say, they ask you your demographic information. They want to know who's watching what, so they can tailor the programming to the correct person. That's smart. That's really smart. And it's not sinister either. A lot of people think, oh, look how sneaky of them. That's a really good thing, because if I'm a 30-year-old male in London watching wrestling, I would like them to know what it is that I watch, what it is that I enjoy, so they can give me more of the same. It's right. So they can target their programming to someone like me because I enjoy this genre of entertainment. It's fantastic.
Either that or you'll be watching Saturday Morning Slam.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not doing that. Never, never again. So, hey, what did you make of the comments that Triple H made about China? I thought that was quite interesting. He basically said that because she had done adult films, they couldn't put her in the Hall of Fame. Did you
Yeah,
sense the discomfort there?
about that. There are a lot of people with questionable pasts in the Hall of Fame. You have Superfly Jimmy Snuka in the Hall of Fame, who may or may not have killed a woman, depending on who you ask. You
Wow.
have, yeah.
I did
you
not know that, actually. I don't know the Jimmy Snuka story. I know people are going to say
okay?
he doesn't know his inside wrestling, but I'm happy to admit I'm going to have to look up this Jimmy Snuka story later.
Yeah, I can briefly run it down for you. Okay, like in the 80s, supposedly McMahon paid off whoever like to make this case just go away. And they got Snuka basically a free pass, but years later they opened back up the file and it's something they're kind of looking at right now. Um, Now they regularly bring X-Pac back on TV, and he was in a adult film with China.
Yeah.
Now China kept that career going. Like she's been in multiple films, and good for China, make your money. But
Yeah, so what one is an adult film actor, whilst the other one you could almost say is an adult film star.
yes, and I'm not sure. Like I think it's a little bit deeper than that because WWE has worse stuff on the network. I can go find
Very
tickets right now
carefully.
on the network right now, and I
Yeah.
can tell everyone where to find it.
No, listen, that's not this kind of podcast, dude. It's a
Yeah.
family-friendly podcast. I don't want you to start telling people about some of the more outrageous things they've done on the WWE. But I'm with you. I
Yeah,
know what you mean. It does smack of a double standard from the WWE. He
and I
looked really
just think
uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I thought he came up with that on the spot. I think he was just like, oh crap, I forgot all about China. He's asking me about her. I don't have anything prepared. What am I gonna say? What am I gonna say? And it's obviously awkward for him. She was the last person that he dated on television as well, before he met his wife, who he works with every day. It
I
can't
think
be.
that's the reason China's not going in the Hall of Fame more than anything. Like Stephanie wants nothing to do with that.
Yeah, see, I think so too, but I don't know. I don't. I want to give Stephanie the benefit of the doubt. I reckon she's relatively secure. I don't want to speculate about her personal life, but okay,
Right.
great. Asking you, completely, impartial person, history of wrestling person like myself, right? Do you think China deserves to go in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, most definitely. I remember when China first debuted as a kid and being like, I would never want to run into her. Like, she'd whoop my ass. Like, as what was I, 8 years old at the time? And she, she was the first, she's a one of one. Like, there was none before her, none to come, like as Jay-Z would say. Um, that we've seen muscle chicks after that, but none of them had the personality and, the mystique and the aura of China back then. WCW tried it. WWE tried to duplicate her with like Nicole Bass and numerous other big chicks. But China she was in the right place at the right time. And I don't know if you remember her how big she was. Like they would show her lifting, and she was a freak of nature. Like,
Yeah,
but she's definitely a Hall of Famer.
yeah, she was massive.
Definitely a
She was
Hall of
absolutely
Famer.
massive, and she was a big star. She's a big, big star.
Huge star.
And people forget that she was once in consideration to actually win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship.
Yes,
Not by
SummerSlam
many people.
'99.
There were some people who were saying that this should happen. And we can speculate about what could or couldn't have happened at the time, but that's huge. I can't imagine. I mean, just look at the roster today, or even of the last 10 years. There's never been a woman before or since. Again, to nick the Jay-Z reference, that can do
Right.
that. I mean, I think the closest any female has come to that kind of dominance was probably Karma or Awesome Kong, if you want to call her that, when she was there. But she just didn't have a run that was long enough really to justify that kind of reputation or that kind of gravitas. But that's interesting. I like that. Anything else that struck you about that Triple H podcast you wanted to talk about?
When he talked about the Bruno Sammartino thing and Warrior, how basically Triple H is a wrestling historian, and he had to basically reach out there and rebuild these relationships that were irreparably tarnished by guys that aren't there no more, or even Vince himself. It should be commendable that he went and got Bruno Sammartino. He went and got Ultimate Warrior. And if, this is something I've been kind of talking about with my boy James. And I'm not sure, but Triple H might have the greatest WrestleMania resume of all time. Wow. He starts his career starts with him facing the Ultimate Warrior, pretty much. And then, you get the Goldust. And then 98, you get Owen Hart. 99, you get Kane. 2000, you get that the Fatal 4-Way with Big Show, Rock, Mankind. 2001, you get The Undertaker. 2002, you get Jericho. 2003, you get Booker T. 2004, you get Benoit and Shawn. 2005, Batista. 2006, you get Cena. 2007, he misses. 2008, he gets Cena and Orton. 2009, he gets Orton. 2010, he gets Sheamus, who became a multiple-time world champion. 2011, Undertaker. Undertaker, 12, 13, Lesnar, 30, Daniel Bryan. Like, if you can name a better WrestleMania resume than that, I'll give you $1.
That's insane. You just rattled that off the top of your head. Now, everybody who's listening to this podcast right now, they can't see you. I can see you. I know that you don't have a list or anything like that in front of you. You just rattled that off from memory. That's impressive.
That's the kind of guy I am.
You're a big Triple H fan, apparently.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of pretty much everyone, and I can rattle off opponents like that, for pretty much like all the major guys. I can do that for.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's brilliant, Rich. That's why we like having you. And listen, I just want to thank you for being a guest on the show again today. I'm going to get you to do a match of the day in a second. But before you do a match of the day, I want you to tell me how people can get in touch with your podcast. I know you just released a new episode very, very recently. How can people hear it? Tell me about your podcast.
It's called One Nation Radio. You can follow it on Twitter at One Nation Radio. I put all the links on there, but you can go to onenationradio.podomatic.com. You can find it there. You can go on iTunes and just type in One Nation Radio, and it'll come right to you every day. Or you can go to richladawrestling.com. All my content is on there. All you have to do is follow the little follow button on the upper left-hand corner. I put all my podcasts on there, as well as all my columns. I write at 3 websites: whatculture.com, huge in the UK, PW Mania, also huge in the UK, and socialsuplex.com, which we're building up now with my boy Jeremy Donovan, at Pro Black Guy. Shouts out to Jeremy. And
we're gonna have to get Jeremy on the show at some point. Actually, I'd
he
like
actually
to get Jeremy
lives like 30 minutes away from me, so it's pretty cool.
I'm not suggesting you have to drive him or anything. I'm just saying, he could get his own connection. But it'd be nice to have Jeremy on the show, because I really enjoyed listening to you guys, and I recommend that podcast to absolutely anybody who enjoys wrestling podcasts. So yeah, guys, do check it out. They've got interesting. They're not as tenacious as us at Play-by-Play. We put one out every day. With help from guests like Rich.
Yeah, you guys are good. We obviously do a longer show, but and I feel like in our format we do our thing. And this, I told Atif, this first show, the half-hour format is incredible.
Yeah, no, we love doing it, man. We absolutely love doing it, and I want to stick to that format, which is why I'm going to rush you now, because we're coming towards the end of the show. Rich, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. We're going to have you back again soon at some point. I might throw you and Armand together for one episode, so you can really argue with somebody. I feel like we've got very similar views, but Armand will argue with you, I promise you, and you'll enjoy it.
I heard his other podcast where he kind of answered me, and
episode 20.
We'll get to it one day.
Yeah, we'll book that match one day. That was episode 20, Armand's rebuttal to some of the points that Rich made on the episode that you last appeared on. So, Rich, very quickly, give me a match of the day, man.
Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc 1997, arguably the greatest WCW match ever. Wow,
that's a match. That's a heck of a match, and it's available, of course, on the WWE Network.
Yep, or YouTube.
Havoc 97, was it?
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. Okay, well, I will definitely check that out myself. Actually, I'll rewatch that. Big fan of Rey Mysterio Jr., as he was called at the time,
Hmm.
and his work in that part of. Check that out. A big thank you again to Rich Latta the second, my guest today. You can follow him on Twitter at DangerRich32. But yeah, thanks again, everybody tuning in to Play by Play. Remember, you can tweet us as well at PlayByPlay123. You can email us questions at playbyplay123.co.uk. And you can talk to us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. It's facebook.com/playbyplay wrestling. Well, that's it for today, ladies and gents. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for episode 22, which may or may not feature the return of Rahman. I haven't decided yet. I'll work it out and I'll let you know. But thanks for tuning in. Make sure you leave loads of comments for us to read. But for now, from myself, Atif, from Rich, it's goodbye.
Peace.